Egyptians. And they took off their chariot. He took off their chariot wheels so they drove them with difficulty. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fights against the Egyptians." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the waters may come back up to the Egyptians, and their chariots and their horsemen." And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and when the morning appeared, the sea turned into full depth, while the Egyptians were fleeing into it. So the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. Then the waters returned and covered the chariots and horsemen, and all the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. Not so much as one of them remained. But the children of Israel had walked on dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall to them, in their right hand and to their left. So the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Thus Israel saw the great work which the Lord had done in Egypt. And so the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. All right. So I just want us to kind of imagine ourselves being with the Israelites and the situation they were in. So they had been in Egypt for over 400 years. That's all they knew. That was their life, that was their parents' life, that's all they had known. It was their safety. It wasn't necessarily safe for them to be slaves to the Egyptians, but it was what they knew, was what they were comfortable with. And then all of a sudden this guy who they had probably heard about, they probably knew at one point, this old guy who was one of them, looked like them, but he grew up as royalty and runs away after killing some people and is gone for a long time, and then all of a sudden comes back and says, "Hey, I'm going to take you guys out of here." And they probably didn't believe him at first, but then, he does some miracles, and you have all of these plagues that come across the Egyptians, but we're all safe. So, hey, maybe this guy's legit. Maybe this is actually a real thing. And what do you know? Pharaoh actually lets you go. And now here you are in the middle of the wilderness. And, there's nothing. You're not in your home. You left your home. You left the comfort of your bed and your house and the food that you had, and granted everybody was with you, but still you left the comfort of what you knew, and now you're in the middle of this wilderness, and you're at this place where there's this giant sea, this giant body of water behind you, and you don't really know what's going to happen next. So this is where we find the Israelites. So what we see from this is that, or what we want to get out of this, is that wherever we are, we should trust God for his protection, because he's going to protect us. And we can see that very clearly through this story. So the first thing that we see through this story is, one of the things that we see is God protecting the Egyptians at night. And he says how he protected them at night and during the day. So it says that he protected them at night with a pillar of fire. And now I, as most of y'all know, came from Texas and the Metroplex of Dallas, which has lights everywhere. And then I moved to this little town in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina. And not even in the city of the town, but in the country of the town, where there are no streetlights, even in the city. So there's no streetlights in the country. And at night, it gets very dark. And, going back to my fear at night.